Hey, I just want to take about 15 minutes with you today and talk about something that is ultra important. And that is partially it's about balance in your practice to keep your marketing engine rolling and running strong. It's talking about 5 live events in particular that are extremely important, that are helping to fuel growth, and how you marry that, or why you also need to marry that with your virtual, easy for me to say, your virtual, your remote, and your digital efforts. So please, let's just spend a couple minutes together. I think you're going to find it super valuable.
This is The Rare Advisor, proud to be a part of the Advisor Advancement Network and home of a business model supercharged by recurring and repeatable events. Your host is Mike Walters, CEO of USA Financial. He is an investment advisor representative of, and securities are offered through USA Financial Securities, member FINRA SIPC, a registered investment advisor.
Hey, welcome. I just want to have a really candid conversation with you today and start by saying I owe some of you a bit of an apology. I think some people, from based on probably something I've either said or done in some of these videos, or maybe my team or my staff has relayed to you throughout the pandemic and the lockdowns and everything that we've lived through over the last few years, that somehow virtual meetings are replacing live meetings. And the same could be said for events. Virtual or digital events are replacing live events. Now, there was a period of time in which that is entirely true, that those things were in fact happening. But that period of time is well beyond us now. And I think there are some perceptions that it's important that you mentally dismantle. Because, again, if perception is reality in our social media driven world, would you be willing to bet your future on that? Or would you run a split test? My guess is you would definitely run a split test. And there's some great quotes here and some great thoughts about perception being reality. But the point is, many individuals think that the live events are not successful the way they had been in the past, or that the options have been dramatically limited. And the opposite is actually true. So we put just tons of horsepower. We really leaned in during the early days of the pandemic and taking all of our offline marketing, media, our lead gen, and really kind of converting that over to a digital or virtual or remote environment. And we were very successful at doing that. In fact, so successful that many advisors are leaning equally heavy on that now as what they used to on live events, whether it was prospecting events or client seminars or appreciation events or whatever category you want to think of. They kind of went from leaning too heavy on one side to now leaning too heavy on the other side. And I'm going to tell you that the answer, as so many times in life is the case, it's in the middle. The answer is actually in the middle. I would tell you, think of a bell curve. If you think and analyze this like a bell curve, you want to be in the center of the bell curve. You don't want to be off on one edge or the other, because you're leaving too many opportunities on the table when that is the case. I think that there's a place for remote, there's a place for virtual, there's a place for events, and there's a place for face-to-face. All four of those things need to be incorporated into how you're operating your practice. Otherwise, again, I think you're leaving opportunities on the table. Now, the perception is an issue, because some people, I think, are kind of stuck in whatever worldview they might have had, or business view in this instance, about how this stuff is operating in the marketplace and what's working and what isn't, that they've shoehorned themselves in. And I'm not going to pretend to know if that applies to you specifically, but what I see is people are in like different boxes. They're all looking at it or kind of stuck based upon where they're at, because some parts of the country lock down differently than other parts of the country. And some parts of the country have been dealing with remote work differently than other parts of the country. But when it comes to dealing with your customers, you've got to cover all those bases. And I don't mean like where the client makes a choice or an option and says, I want to work with you remote versus I want to work with you face to face. And I know some advisors have done that and have been, fairly successful doing that. But what I'm saying is that's an option on almost like a meeting by meeting opportunity or an event by event opportunity where you're doing it different ways to kind of help people through some of the change back to a face-to-face environment. But the reality is people are way ahead of where you think they are. So I'm going to really quickly just point this out to you in terms of what the National Press Club is saying with live versus virtual versus hybrid events. What is best? Now, I don't like reading things to you, but I will read some of this material right in here. There is no other medium that expresses the nuances of communication better than face-to-face interactions. Body language is a huge factor in communication. Posture, gestures, facial expressions, eye movements, all of these things are best translated live. So many people attend events not just for the content, but for the opportunity to meet and interact with other attendees, with speakers with similar interests, and so on. The human factor and relationship building experiences are the number one reason that people are attending these events. Now, I threw this graphic up here for you because I like this part where they just give you a quick little analysis of what works best face to face versus virtual or hybrid. And hybrid, by the way, is running a live event, but then also having a video opportunity. What I would probably recommend if you're going to go down that hybrid route, by the way, is run your live event, but then record it and you can make it available later to others. I personally don't like running them at the same time. I think it takes away from the live event to actually be trying to deal with and communicate with the virtual people at the same time as the face-to-face people. I would run the event live, go ahead and record it, and then you can do things with that recording in a more of a virtual environment. But again, face-to-face coming in as the most effective communication, increased collaboration and or interaction, and it's easier to relay complex info, which our industry is full of complex info. So again, it's tough to recreate some of those things virtually. Now, they are very useful, obviously. There's a lot of good things about virtual, but again, there's better things when you actually are combining them together. This was an interesting stat down here. Millennials, who you would think would be all about the virtual, 84% of them are still preferring face-to-face meetings. And I'll let you kind of look through some of the other stats on this page if you'd like. But events themselves, coming out of the house, getting back into the population, it is back in bigger ways than it's ever been before. And I think a lot of people miss that. They don't realize that what used to be prior to the pandemic is back and is back in a bigger way than it's ever been before. This is restaurant spending going all the way back into the 90s. And you can see it's been obviously on an increasing trend. Here's the pandemic. Right here is the pandemic, the big dip. But look where we're at today. We are at the highest point ever. So people are back to restaurants. I mean, I don't know what your town's like, but my town has longer waiting lists at restaurants than they've ever had before. In fact, if anything has changed in the restaurant business, thanks to COVID, is a lot of restaurants don't take reservations anymore. And so they've realized that, hey, people will come and they will wait. And while they're waiting, they'll order a drink or they'll do other things and they'll sit there and maybe even spend more money because of the way they're dealing with that. That's the change that's taking place. The idea that restaurants are empty today is just ludicrous because they're exactly the opposite. NFL football. The average NFL crowd grew by 3.25% in 2022. It hit 69,442 people per game attending in person. That is the second highest figure over the last 19 years. In fact, the only year that beat it was 2016, and it only beat it by 45 people per game. Less than a school bus full of people in a stadium that was the difference. So there's only twice that it's gone over 69,000, and once was 2022. And from what I've read, they're expecting 2023 to set all new records. And the year over year changes. Look at all of these teams and stadiums increased their attendance rates in the recent year. Only these stadiums decreased. And here's the stadium capacity. Like some of them are running over 100%. So I don't know if they're selling standing room only or what, but you're looking at all of them but one team is well north of 90% attendance rating across the entire stadium. And then finally, look at what's going on with this whole Taylor Swift thing. She is blowing record after record out of the water. The Wall Street Journal is actually calling her, or calling it, the impact she's having, Taylornomics. Fortune called it the T Swift lift, and the Federal Reserve is crediting her with boosting the country's economy thanks to her live stadium tour. Again, people are packing into these stadiums. They are out taking advantage of being back to normal and interacting in face-to-face scenarios. Her projected earnings estimates are about 1.4 billion in gross revenue, surpassing Elton John's Farewell Yellow Brick Road tour, which was the winner prior to her at 853 million. 3.5 million people registered for tickets to the tour on Ticketmaster. And if I understand it right, I don't do a ton on Ticketmaster. I think that's kind of like pre-registering. It's almost like trying to reserve their spot to purchase a ticket. Because on the first day of sale, 2 million tickets were sold, and that's even after all the technology problems that Ticketmaster had. They made major headlines with the fact they couldn't keep up, and there would have been a lot more sold than 2 million had they not been having all their tech problems. And then this is really interesting. It gets a little off the beaten path, but I thought it was super cool stat that you might enjoy hearing. The income generated through the extra spending by fans, meaning going to hotels, going to restaurants, transportation, all the things that happen either leading up to or shortly thereafter one of her performances. On average, people are spending $1,300 additional per person, not counting the ticket cost for what they're attending in. So the economic increase, or the boon generated by her tour, the Eras Stadium tour, is expected to be around $5 billion. That is the same number as the combined, not individual, combined GDP of 50 countries. Pretty crazy. People are out and about doing things. So, with that being said, there are 5 most popular live business builders. So, again, we can help you on all the digital side too. I just want you to understand you should be doing both. There are 5 most popular business builders. They're not in any particular order here, but here's the 5 things that people are doing in a live environment, not counting just traditional appointments. I didn't add that to the list. You could call it 6 if you want to add that. But client appreciation events. Again, it's just simply about loving on your clients, enjoying time with them, helping them get out, helping them enjoy each other's company, as well as obviously your company and influence. Number 2, bring a friend introduction events. Whether it's going to sporting events or whatever, where you encourage them to bring somebody along who you end up getting in a social environment to hang out with and get to meet as well. And obviously, one thing leads to another. Ideal client receptions. You know that our advisor protocol team coaches you on all of this, mentors you on how to do these. These have been really the driving force for new clients coming in to most of the practices affiliated with USA Financial. It is a phenomenal way to get in front of your like-minded prospects, essentially duplicating your ideal clients. And then the Fill the Room Prospect topical seminars. We have a library of these available as well. These are most similar to what we were doing in a pre-pandemic environment. They are still alive. The key is you're not selling products. You're not selling performance. The only thing for sale is an appointment with you afterwards. It's all about educating the consumer. And speaking of educating the consumer, the most recent addition, which is doing very well, are the Retirement Design Lab courses, where you do a multiple day course, usually a 2-day course. Some people are running them at universities or various other institutions, but people are coming to truly be educated. And generally speaking, those who are in attendance are very interested in becoming clients of yours afterwards. So you can get more detail on all these things, but I just want to make sure you truly understand that getting back in front of people in a live session, regardless of what that live session is ultra important to creating balance and continued growth in your practice. So, hey, anything we can help with, please reach out. We are here for you all the time. I am here for you. I'm happy to assist and or connect you to the right people here at USA Financial. So thank you, everyone. Thanks for all you do for us. and hopefully we are returning the favor.
This information is for licensed financial professionals only and is not intended for use in soliciting sales from the public. The views expressed represent the opinions of the presenter or their featured guest, not necessarily those of USA Financial or its affiliated subsidiaries. Industry references are generic and not intended to represent actions or beliefs of any individual or entity. Content is only presented to illustrate general principles, beliefs, or ideas and should not be construed as legal or regulatory advice. Trademark and copyright protected. USA Financial and Affiliates.